28, 2022 special media council. Council adoption of the agenda. Any deletions? Guess we can't because we don't have everybody here anyway. So, all right, and nothing from administration.
Nothing we can add.
All right, so look for a motion to adopt. Councillor Stashik.
I'd like to move the council adopt today's special meeting of council agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. So we'll call that the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. So we're going to move on to our new business with 3 items. First, going to start off with the sewer rate bylaw 858-19. Hand it over to you, ICO Hanlon.
Thank you, Chair. On page 2 of 18 of council's agenda package, or the committee's agenda package, excuse me, bit of housekeeping. So we've got the we'll be dealing with sewer rate bylaw, the water rate bylaw, and the waste rate bylaw here today. These are related to and form a part of the adopted 2022, operating budget for the town of Hinton. And the first of this is the sewer rate bylaw number 858-19. And this is the first of 3 contemplated rate increases of this sewer rate, each being 4% per year. And so we're bringing this for the consideration of council. It was budgeted to commence July 1st. So I do appreciate the special council meeting here today. It certainly aligns with the budget, but also makes it much easier on staff for the billing cycles. And so it is contemplated that this should add additional sewer revenues of approximately $40,000. The agenda package is published and council does have this available. We are seeking 3 readings of the proposed amendments that you see in 858-19, which is attached, and administration and the author are available for any questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ICO Hanlon. Council, questions, discussion? Councillor Magoon.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that council give sewer rate bylaw number 858-19 first reading.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon.
No,
Councillor Bush.
I have a question after.
After, okay. So we have a direction or motion on the floor. Council, any question? Any comment? All right, then we'll call that the question that council gives sewer rate bylaw number 858-19 first reading. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Council? Councillor Reese?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the council give sewer rate bylaw number 858-19 second reading.
Thank you, Councillor Reese. Would you like to speak to it or?
No, sir.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. Any questions? Councillor Labarge.
So in the background, it says in conjunction with the 2022 budget process, council approved the 3-year increase of 4% per year at the December 15th, 2020 special meeting of council. So the 2022 budget deliberation in December 15th, 2020, like, I don't remember having a wholesome discussion about this. And I'm curious of when we approved 4% a year.
Administration.
Thank you, sir. I'm just actually checking. I have not caught that. So December 15th, 2021 was not a Tuesday. And so I guess 2020, it would have been, I'm just going to double check and see if it's a date issue or if this does date back. So December 15th, 2020 was a Tuesday. I'm not sure, Dale, do you have any recollection on the history of this direction for the increases?
So, council, in my history goes back to 2020 when the CEO of the day and the director of the day met with West Fraser on challenges of costs. So they brought a report to council in November advising there's going to be an increase over the next 3 years coming forward to pay for those increased costs, 4% a year. That was arranged to the director of the day, helping the director here, a consultant helping to recommend that cost. And that was the first of the 3-year budgets presented to council. And it was put in that it would be a 4% increase per year. So when I did the budget back in September of 2021, I just automatically put the 4% in as it would be passed. Now, please forgive me here, but we have so many changes in personnel in both the CEO, interim CEO, and the director and the interim director. And
I know better than the average does.
So, there's a little bit of disconnect in regards to who was to bring it forward and remind council during the 2022 budget presentation. I think it was maybe an oversight, but it was assumed that that was part of the budget process, because I can tell you the $305,000, which I put a copy into your report, you weren't going to pick it up in 1 year and 4%, because your CPI was 2.6% in 2020, and 21 is now 4.6%. We are actually losing.
So this is gonna bring in, if I could follow up, Mr. Chair, so this is gonna bring in $40,000. Do we have $40,000 of additional costs? Because it'll bring in $160,000 over $120,000 over the 3 years.
If I could, sir, on page 2 of your agenda, and this is a bit what Dale has referenced, is there was an agreement made between the town of Hinton and West Fraser on some of those extenuating or additional costs. And I'll just read it here. It's towards the bottom of page 2. So a breakdown of costs and reductions amounted to an additional requirement of $305,000. And that included approximately $110,000 a year for power, rent of the water treatment plant space, reduction of West Fraser potable water bill through accounting and recirculation charges. That was about $20,000 a year, and contribution to lagoon maintenance of $150,000 a year. So these are the additional costs which triggered so this is one component, one increase intended to cover this additional, and I can share, I did sign the purchase order to pay this year's amount to West Fraser. So we do have the additional costs, and this is the town's response to cover those costs.
Thank you.
Sir, if I could,
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Stashik and then Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just keep it really short and brief. It was the December 15th, 2020 budget meeting where that 4% motion was passed.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Taylor. You're on mute, sir.
So this 4% over, what are the additional costs over the, are we talking annual additional costs with this 305, or are we talking the costs over the 3 years? And what's the additional revenue that these numbers, the 4 to 5% will bring in for the sewer, water and waste over the additional cost? 915,000, is this per year? And how much extra revenue is being brought in by these kind of just?
Sir, thank you. Through the chair to Member Taylor to all of the committee. This is an annual amount of $305,000, which was negotiated, I believe, for a 3-year period of time. And it is the intent that increases to the sewer rate, the water rate, and the waste rate will combine for approximately $305,000 in revenues to cover this. Is that correct, Bill?
Not in 1 year. It's
No.
based on the 3 years, because we have other CPI cost increases like power. Believe it or not, the power increases are going up dramatically at the water treatment plant. The cost of chemicals is going up. And I'm just talking water treatment plant. So the cost of the chemicals are going up substantially. The cost of the PLC, the skaters, the repairs are constantly going up. So our budget needs to be offset to make this extra revenue. And then I'm not quite sure, but the directors had a plan in regards to how they're going to balance the reserves. This is part of it as well. But remember, this is 2020 when this plan was put forward. And this was prior to what's happened this year, like the cost of fuel and the war. These are all knowns at the time. It's put together. It's really going to be another challenge next year.
Okay, Councillor Taylor, you're good? Thank you. All right, so council, we do have a motion on the table to give this second reading. Any other comments or questions before we call it the question? All right, then I'll call to question the council give sewer rate bylaw number 858-19 second reading. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Council? Councilor Magoon.
Move that council gives sewer rate bylaw number 858-19 unanimous consent for third reading.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Council, comments, questions? All right, then I'll call that to question. The council gives sewer rate bylaw number 858-19 unanimous consent for third reading. All those in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Right, and council? Councilor Riggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the council give sewer rate bylaw number 858-19 third reading.
Thank you, Councilor Riggs. You can speak to it or fine?
No, I'm fine with the information.
All right. Council, any comments or questions on this motion? All right, then I'll call to question the council gives sewer rate bylaw number 858-19 third reading. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. All right, thank you, council. We'll move on to our next item, which is now the water rate bylaw 859-25, and I'll hand it over to you, Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to all members of the committee. Page 6 of 18 in today's agenda package. This is water rate bylaw number 859-25. And again, this is in conjunction with the 2022 budget process. This is a increase to the water rate fees for residential and commercial, or excuse me, residential and non-residential customers of 4%. With a July 1st implementation date, we anticipate $110,000 in additional revenues for 2022. Similarly to bylaw 858-19, which we just dealt with, it's brought forward and we're seeking 3 readings of the bylaw here this date. Again, administration and the author is available for any questions of council. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ICO Hanlon. All right, council. Have some recommended actions, Councilor Magoon.
Council, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Councilor Taylor.
What's the customer refundable service charge? Is that for domestic or commercial? Or what's that?
Thank you. That is if someone is closing their account, they would get that refundable charge. I think whatever that rate is. So if your water rate is the flat rate with the sewer and the garbage, they get that 125, 135, whatever the new number is. It should be on the bylaw. When you close your account, you have to put a deposit down when you open an account. You get it refunded.
So everybody puts a deposit down, every resident?
Everybody in account.
All right. Thanks.
Sir, if I could, just on page 9 of your agenda package, in the bylaw sub 1.4, the customer refundable service charge in the bylaw is $153.30.
Great. Councilor Taylor, you good? Okay, council? And some recommended actions. Councilor Magoon.
Sorry, did we hit up first reading yet?
No, we're
Okay,
looking for
perfect.
that.
I'd like to move that council give water rate bylaw number 859-25 first reading.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Council, any questions, discussion on first reading this motion? Great, then I'll call that to question. The council give water rate bylaw number 859-25 first reading. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Council. Second reading. Councilor Labarge.
I move the council give water bylaw 859-25 second reading.
Thank you, Councilor Labarge. Council, any comments, questions, administration? Councilor Taylor.
You might have answered this and I didn't quite hear it. Why are we doing all the utility increases now as opposed to during the budget? Is that just an oversight or is that a deliberate thing?
I don't believe it was an oversight, sir. It's, I would not have liked to have left it this long, however, when we did discuss a July 1st implementation date. So I appreciate council's willingness to call a special meeting of council. We do typically wait until we adopt the budget. We anticipate the revenues, and July 1st is typically enough time to bring this before council. And again, I apologize that we're doing it so close to that July 1st date.
Administration. Councillor Taylor? You follow up?
Well, wouldn't it be more logical that it occurs during the budget session? Because if you, what the utility fee increase is affects the budget, so they both should be considered together. Is that not logical, or did I miss something?
Sir, through you to Councillor Taylor, in my mind, actually, it makes sense to bring it as part of the budget, and I don't know if there's a particular reason why we don't. The implementation date is something you'd want to take into account, whether it was January 1st or July 1st. But in future, certainly the earlier you're doing it in the year, quite frankly, the more revenue that the town would realize through the increased revenues. But there's no reason, I don't believe, that it couldn't be done in conjunction with the budget. I would suggest that it's just, there's an awful lot going on at that time when we adopt the budget, and it's maybe just one less thing to worry about at that time.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a follow-up on that, and I realize, you know, things happen, but coming forward with the new budget policy, I'm guessing that would be captured potentially into the new policy where when we would be seeing these. Is that correct? What I assume?
That would be correct, yes.
Thank you.
This general philosophical discussion we should have around user fees and fee schedules and a regular review of those, and this would fall into that discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rees?
Thank you, sir. So I just need to refresh my memory. So Dale, my memory is every February and March, you would come to council. You would give us, you know, a possible increase. We would say yes, and then we would have our tax rate bylaw. So we would get your increase, then we would have to do the tax rate bylaw so that these increases could take effect.
Sir, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to just go back in time. What happened here in my mind is that in 2020, during the budget deliberation, which I was part of with council, we brought up the percentage increase. And I'm confident that we were talking a 3-year plan because of all the new changes in personnel. When I did the budget back in the fall, I said it's 4% automatic because of the 3-year budget. Now, from there, it might have got mistransformed. We put it through. I know we talked about it. I think during the budget process, it might have been forgotten it was automatic 4% put in there. And that's the change. Because it's always mentioned during the budget process what we're going to do for an increase back in November, actually, if I recall. And then as soon as the budget's approved, we come back to you with 4% formality, which is doing today. And normally we don't do the 3 readings. We do a 2 weeks notice, go back to the public and come back for the final. We're running.
Yeah, so you're familiar with what I remember.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you're right, and Paul's right in regards to where we're going in the future. This should be part of it, always in advance of the budget presentation. We put the numbers in that I think we have to go in there and be justified later.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, all right, council, so we have a motion on the table. We give this second reading. Any further questions on that? All right, so I'll call that the question. The council give water rate bylaw number 859-25 second reading. All those in favor? It's passed unanimously. Council? Yes, Councilor Rees.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to move the council give water rate bylaw number 859-25 unanimous consent for 3rd reading.
Thank you, Councilor Rees. Council, any questions? All right, I'll call this the question then. The council give water rate bylaw number 859-25 unanimous consent for 3rd reading. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Council. 3rd reading. Counselor Magoon.
Move that council give water rate bylaw number 859-25 third reading.
Thank you, Counselor Magoon. All right, council, any questions, comments on this motion? All right, I'll call that the question. The council give water rate bylaw number 859-25 third reading. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. All right, and we'll move on to our waste rate bylaw 933-6. I see O'Hanlon.
Thank you, sir. Page 10 of 18 of your agenda package. This is the waste rate bylaw update. That's number 933-6. And this is a proposed increase of 4% for residential and 5% for non-residential customers, again, with an effective date of July 1st. And similarly to the two previous bylaws, the bylaw as proposed is attached, and administration is seeking 3 readings at today's council meeting. Administration and the author are available for any questions regarding the bylaw or the schedule.
Thank you. I see O'Hanlon. Councilor Ward.
Why 4% residential, 5% commercial?
There is a move to offset the shortage of commercial fees. They're short, so they went 5% over 3 years. Basically, because the cost of the bins that we're supplementing from residential. So it's a shift to get more to the commercial cost of picking up the bins. So
The commercial's paying for the residential.
no, it's the other way around. Residential subsidized about 60-40 right now. And there is a motion that council approved in the modernization to move to full cost recovery. And it's going to be less of an impact to commercial as they slowly go in there. So next year, maybe even later this year, when they go 100% full cost recovery for commercial, and they get the second truck and get that old system out, then they can do a true cost analysis, and then they'll come with the true cost, what it's going to be. We're anticipating residential, the total bins are going to be relative where it's at, but the commercial is looking for their full cost recovery as council has directed us. It's going to be substantial increase coming. 5% 2020 was the number of council gave us direction.
Councilor Taylor, I saw your hand up.
Do businesses have the option to go private for waste collection, or are they required to just use the government waste collection?
The current bylaw says that the town of Hinton is responsible for collection of the waste and the cost will go to the town of Hinton. There are a couple customers, Parks West Mall, for example, who have a private collection because we couldn't provide the service that they wanted. I believe they have, like for Safeway, they have the food portion of it, which is one great big compacted bin that they use, and we don't provide that service. There's a couple hotels I know went private, and they are substantially higher than what we're charging today. They wanted to have the big 6-yard roll up bin before we got it. And as we go out there, they have their opportunity to come back. Some commercial customers are also what's called on a where they'll have someone from all the way across Waste Management or GFL across Canada, and they have a corporate sign. So we honor that. So I think there's 2 hotels doing that right now, but the rest are all town.
But if I owned a small business, I could go either government or commercial if I wanted. Private?
If the bylaw was enforced as it is today, no.
Oh. Right. I got another question on the fee schedule, but I can wait.
You're next.
So the rate table. How does this, is this commercial rate table or is this residential rate table or what?
So if I could just ask, there's 3 rate tables. There's one on the first page, on page 13, there's 2 on page 14. Could I just ask the member to clarify?
Yeah, Councilor Taylor, which rate table are you referring to?
Oh, I didn't realize that. Sorry, it's on 13.
13, okay.
Could I ask just if he could repeat the question?
Okay, so if you could please repeat your question on that table, please.
What's this? Okay, well, I don't understand the table. So $63.13 for one bin picked up once a week. Is that what the residential person gets charged? Is that what the commercial person gets charged?
No, the residential on the top of the page is gonna be $13.60 per month. For once a week pickup,
Oh, I see. Okay.
okay? And then what happened is we're in a transition, which we thought we'd be done by the end of the year, but we're not. We're in a transition with the old existing blue bins, so we have, John, you know the number better than I do, 150 old blue bins still open.
Maybe a little less, 50.
So we have our old truck, which is picking up mainly apartments and condos, I believe, and a few businesses still. So that's the rate of the old truck. Then we got the new truck that we anticipated what the cost is because the bins were substantially more. So you'll see there's an increase in the front road. And so we had to have a fee for that schedule. And then that went up 5% from last year. But as soon as they get rid of the old existing bins out there and they go all front load bins, then we can do a uniform one fee.
All right, thank you. Oh, just what this ICI, what that means is not explained. What's that mean?
That would be industrial, commercial, and institutional businesses, schools, hospitals.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, council, any further questions or motions, recommended actions? Council, we're looking for a first reading, update for that. Waste of state bylaw. Council Labarge.
I move that council give waste bylaw number 933-6 first reading.
Thank you, Council Labarge. Council, any questions, comments, first reading? All right, then we'll call that to question. The council give waste rate bylaw number 933-6 first reading. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Council Race.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that council give waste rate bylaw number 933-6 second reading.
Thank you. Any comments on that? All right, council, any questions, comments? I'll call that the question then. The council give waste rate bylaw number 933-6 second reading. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Councilor Taylor.
Just a follow-up question from before, just because I can think of it. Is that common that a municipality would have a law that says that you must have your garbage picked up by us?
I gotta go back 26 and a half years on this one. Maybe 27 plus now. It's always been the town of Hinton that provided the service, and under the bylaw 933, it's in there that the town of Hinton does it, except in the discretion of the director or CAO designate could waive it.
Mr. Hanlon.
Thank you, sir. If I could call Councillor Taylor to all of council, I can say that when I was at the town of Stony Plain, similar language. So you were obligated to pay it. If you chose to opt out and if you wanted to go to somebody private, you could do so, but you were still paying the town of Stony Plain. So you.
Okay. Councilor Taylor.
Thank you.
All right, council. Looking for recommended action, unanimous consent. Any Councilor Magoon?
I'd like to move that council gives waste rate bylaw number 933-6 unanimous consent for third reading.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Council, any questions? All right, we'll call that the question then. That council give waste rate bylaw number 933-6 unanimous consent for third reading. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Council, one more if we may. Councilor Sasha.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move the council give waste rate bylaw number 933-6 third reading.
Thank you, Councillor Stajik. Council, any comment, discussion on this motion? All right, then I'll call to question the council give waste rate bylaw number 33-6 third reading. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Councillor Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While Dale is still here, I do have a question for him, sir. If I may.
Mhm.
So with water being such a treasured resource and a wonderful treasured commodity, is there any talk, within the area that you work in, or anything in motion regarding water meters to help us offset costs, to monitor water usage where we have leaks?
We have a SCADA control system, so we measure the water coming from the plant to the meter vault. And then we distribute to the valley, to Thompson Lake, to Switzer. So we have a general good idea where the water is. We do know when we have exceptional use of water, higher use. It's either one of three things. It's either a water leak, or there's high demand in the commercial area where it's full of hotels are full and the water truck fill station use water. A few heavy businesses that are in that water business, or we have watering grass. So you can tell on the rainy days, we go back to our normal, say, let's just say for easy math, it's 6,000 cubes. And when we get that heat belt we had last year, we're at 8,500 to 10,000. We know where the water is going very quickly. We did come to council in 2015 with the water conservation plan. There were things that we were going to do, but we never got direction to go to water meters because of the water treatment plant costs that are coming or forthcoming, or where that's at. There's still ongoing challenges on that. Once that gets settled, because the cost was estimated at $2 million to go residential. That was back in 2015. So the council kind of stayed away from that one at that point. But you can't put in outdoor bans for watering during high peak times. We brought that one to council back in early 2000 in regards to watering laws. Do not water from 9 AM to 5 PM. Just giving an example, which got defeated. So maybe it's time to bring something like that back to restrict water use, even to those kind of things.
I know back then we were very polite.
Very, very.
We were not saying this is how it's gonna be. We were very polite in saying, would you please? So, okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
I see O'Hanlon.
Thank you, sir. If I could just build on that, as council is aware, very recently, we had a maintenance issue at the water treatment plant, and we worked with the residents and our water users cooperatively, nicely. And I will say we monitored our reservoir levels, and our ask of the residents, albeit just for a weekend, we had really good response from the residents. And so we were able to complete the maintenance that caused the issue. We were able to complete that maintenance, return the system to full operations, and bring the reservoir levels back up. So thus far, on a short-term basis, nice and voluntary has worked, but that's what we've got at this time. We don't have anything more excessive available to the municipality.
Okay, thanks. I see O'Hanlon. So council, looking for a motion to adjourn. We've now completed our special meeting. Councilor Barge, I move to adjourn. Thank you, Councilor Barge. All those in favor? That's passed. We'll take a 7-minute break to transition until our next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting for June 28th, 2022. The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that it is located on Treaty 6 territories and Métis Nation Region Number 4. These are the traditional territories and ancestral lands of Indigenous peoples, including the Plains Cree First Nations, the Sinewachi, Winnewack, Rocky Mountain First Nations, Stoney, Tsuut'ina, Nakota, Nisuline, Soto, Mountain Métis, Mechief, and many other communities that continue to enrich the land on which the town of Hinton was established. And with that sentiment, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Council, any deletions or additions to today's agenda? All right, and administration?
Nothing, sir.
Nothing. All right, so I look for a motion to adopt the agenda for this committee of the whole meeting. Councilor Race,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that we adopt the committee of the whole agenda for June 28, 2022.
thank you, Councilor Race. All right, I'll call that the question then. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Citizens minute with council, Ms. Jen Cammy, is there anybody online? No, okay, and nobody in here, so, all right, and we have no delegations or presentations today, so we're gonna move right into number 5, reports from administration, starting with 5.1, Town of Hinton Library Board Draft Contract for Services. I see you, Henlon.
Thank you, sir. Through you to the members of the committee, use page 3 of your agenda package. And I'm going to ask our Director of Community Services to take us through the Town of Hinton Library Board draft contract for services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to committee. So we've the public library in the town of Hinton has had a long-standing relationship since 1970, actually. And first, probably formal or more formal relationship we established in writing was back in 2016, where we established a letter of understanding, and basically that just reflected what the relationship was at the time and how we supported the public library in their endeavors to provide those services to the community and maintain their autonomy, and the council supporting that at the time. We updated that about 5 years ago. And again, not much added, just again, creating clarity for the roles of the two organizations. And at that time, it was the intent of both parties to establish more of a contract for services agreement. And over the years, it's just evolved into that as things get more complex. Legislation changes, things like occupational health and safety, making sure that, you know, for on one hand, the town pays the employees. So that's how our CRA works. And yet on the other hand, it's clear by legislation that the employees are the employees of the board. So through some real brainstorming, including with the province, it was established that a contract for services agreement is the best way to go. So over the last year, the board and administration from the town has worked on developing that. It's been vet through many people, including the 2 different boards from last year and this year. It's gone up to municipal affairs and some legal review, as well as all of our internal administration teams. And I know that council and the board met back at the end of May, and council had seen the draft document at the time. What's attached this evening is identical to what you've seen already. Nothing has changed. Nothing's been added from the relationship that we have established. And so this evening, administration is just looking for support from committee to bring the contract for services agreement either as presented, or if there's any further amendments you'd like to see to a future meeting of council for decision.
Thanks, Ms. Hogan. Council. Yes, Councilor Taylor.
Am I correct? I can't see a contract term anywhere in here. This is an indefinite contract with no contract term. Is that correct?
Sorry,
Please.
Sure, thank you. That is correct. The delivery of library services is established by council through a bylaw. And so the way that it works is if a municipality wants to have library services delivered in their community, then the Library Act is enacted and a bylaw has to be established. And so that's what decides whether or not you will have library services in your community. Beyond that, we have a unique situation in Hinton where the relationship is very close and the municipality provides a lot of support to the library board in order for the town of Hinton specifically to be able to have the level of service that our community has gotten accustomed to and really appreciates coming out of the library. There is a section, I believe in here, sorry, let me just look at the page number where you can, thank you, page 18 of 45. Everything from scope of agreement and amendment, there is dispute resolution, there's term and termination. So those would be the conditions of the agreement, without having to put an end date on it, and then perhaps having to extend that the way we have in the last 6 months, just to get the review done. And at any given time, either party can give notice, and of course, at any given time, they can be reviewed as well.
Sure, thank you. I'd like to follow up with a motion, please.
Yes.
That the library board contract have a 4 or 5 year term, whichever term the administration prefers. I'm not in support of signing any contracts that are over a 5 year term, let alone signing one that doesn't have any term. I think it's just a good practice to periodically to re-examine your relationship and your things you're providing on a periodic basis. So I think that's just a good business practice. And see a contract without that just makes me nervous. Thanks.
Thanks, Councilor. Do you have that?
That the library contract have, which specific year, how many years do they want?
3, 4, I'm sorry, 4 or 5, say 5. The only reason I would pick 4 is maybe that matches counselor terms. 5.
Thanks, Councilor Taylor. All right, we have a direction, Councilor Taylor, on the table. Any comments? Questions? I have one, I guess. During our conversation, when we did meet as a board, as a council and as a board, this was brought up, and the thought was to, in the cycle of councils, to not only have an opportunity to relook at it, but also to orientate a new council to the relationship between the board or the library and the town. So I think it would give an opportunity for the council to see what is the relationship, what are the services they provide. So I think having it within the first, say, 6 months or so, or before the budget process starts or something like that, you know, when a new council is interim. So that would be, I'm not sure what recommendations then would be from administration would be best, but that would be my thought if we we're going to go down this path, that would be a reasonable time or logical time to take a look at it. So I don't know, I think Ms. Howard, you had a thought on that during that meeting, if you could maybe, was that the intent to do, was that what you thought, do you recall?
Thank you. That would be one of the advantages. That again provides an opportunity. It is again a unique relationship, and you won't see this across the province. This is a bit of I don't know what it is anyway. If the first year, I mean, you're into your first year now, not quite. So I don't know if there's new council members that feel like now is the time to be exposed to that, to develop some better understanding. I know the first sort of 4 to 6 months can be a lot for a new council. In this case, there wasn't a lot of turnover, but there are some new ones. You could say within the first year of your term, or the second, but it will be hard to kind of coordinate it with perhaps budget timeline. There would be value in doing that for sure, and we can definitely get the wording in there if that's the direction of committees.
Councilor Taylor?
Councillor Hawes, are you suggesting that maybe we change this from 5 to 4 years?
Well,
that way every council will have a look at it at least during their term. And if it's 4 years, it'll probably be, after the first 9 months of the council term.
if I may, yeah, my wording, I think, would be more specific to what Ms. Howard is to look at within the first 6 to 9 months of new term that the contract is reviewed orientated and reviewed by a new council. So I'm not sure of the actual years, but it would indicate, you know, when there's a turnover into a new council, then within the first few months or whatever, that they then look at this document and review it. So I don't know what the wording would be, but I'd look at administration for that, but that's my thought.
Well, how about
Sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor Taylor.
how about if I modify the 5 to 4 years? Then that's roughly within the first year.
If I could, in this circumstance, the 5 years, so this is August 1st is what's proposed. And 4 years would actually take us to August 1st of the next election year. So you'd actually put this right before the fall election that year, which I'm going to say administratively, we would rather not put council or the library board or the library in that position. But I do appreciate what what Member Taylor is saying. So I would almost suggest if there were to be a term placed on this, that it be 5 years. And what that does is it would put it to the August 1st after the next general election. And that would give essentially 10 months for the new council to come in, consider this, not so rigorously tie it to a general election, but allow council to take a look at this. And then at that time, renew it for a 4-year term, which then keeps it.
Do we have our terms correct?
I think so. Do I? I was writing it down. So.
No. I would do it, if you want it to follow that way, I would suggest you follow it. It would be a 3-year term from August 1st of this year. So then that falls in 2025. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it'll be 4 years, sorry.
It is 4 years.
And then
Every 4 years starting
With
now.
4
and that
years
would-
now.
And that would be that.
Oh, sorry, I missed a number. I missed a number here. So
the next election will be 2025. So
2025.
we want to review it in 2026.
So sorry. So Member Taylor, it would be 4 years would get us to what I was suggesting. So if this were 4 years and on that 4-year cycle.
Perfect. Can I change it to 4 years then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Hardy.
And just to see clarification, are you wanting to see a review every 4 years, or do you want it to expire in 4 years?
Oh, I'd like to see a contract term.
So a termination, if it terminates every 4 years, or I mean, it wouldn't say that in here, it's just that this agreement would terminate in 4 years, and that therefore there will be a review because it has to be one. The review would start quite a bit ahead of that, which would be early in that year. So it sometimes takes quite a bit to review these documents, and so it would expire August 1st, 4 years from now, sorry, July 31st, yeah. And therefore the review would probably start a good 6 months before then. So just looking for direction if you want it to be expired or reviewed, and I've heard you say expired. So that's why just get the motion up to make sure we.
Councilor Taylor, is that your intent for expire, not review?
My intent is that there's a contract term, and at the end of the term, there's no contract. That we have to, did I lose you?
No,
No, can you see the share screen, Councilor Taylor?
Kinda. Oh, there we go. I don't know if you can see me.
I want you to be able to see your motion, that's why.
Oh, I can't see it, but
Sorry, I'll make it bigger.
Expiration term. Just an expiration term.
I'm sorry, I can't see any motion. What's the wording so far?
We're looking for, you want it to expire, correct? So you have the contract have a 4-year expiration term added to the Town of Hinton Library Board contract for services agreement. Is that?
I would like the Town of Hinton Library contract to have a 4-year term.
I think that's what you just stated, sir.
Okay. I have you, customers. I have you. Okay, so I have myself and then Councilor Magoon and Councilor Race. So my question to Dan is, under the contract currently, that if the parties were to terminate the agreement, there is a 2-year written notice. So my question is that if after 4 years, the town decides not to continue, does that then trigger a 2-year then process?
Sir,
Yes, we would have to see how this motion impacts the rest of the sections
yes.
in this document, and that's also why option 2, which is if this is directed, we would make sure that whatever review needed to be done, first of all, that there's support from your other party to accept that, and then just make sure that it's in compliance with the rest of the sections, and so that may have to be modified as well. We have to get back to you on that with legal counsel.
Okay, so based on that, I'm gonna make the comment that I'm not gonna support this. Because the thought of if a council were to sever that, then that means the library is on their own completely, which means that everything that's in this contract would have to be then figured out, like, and so that would potentially close our library doors for, I have no idea how long, because that's part of the intent of this whole contract, is to show what exactly is the town doing in conjunction with the library. And if the town were not to do that, then they'd have to go out and find providers of all these things. And to end a contract like that and close the library doors, I can't be in support of that. This library, it's quite an asset to our community. There's a lot of people that use it. We've seen that over the years, so I won't be supporting this. So thank you. Councillor Magoo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would certainly be all for reviewing the contract every 4 years. I think that's just good practice. I would hate for our default position to be terminating the contract, because I think then what it does is it handcuffs a new council to dealing with the contractual issue every year that a new council is elected, and they have other things that they need to be doing, focusing on their first budgeting as a council, dealing with setting up their strategic plan, the tactical plan, and they may have some other goals that are far more important to their first year in their first term than simply dealing with a contract that actually may be fully functional, and just locking a term to it. I understand the concern of it taking 2 years with the current draft to instituting potentially a new revision. So I'd be okay with actually changing that length of time, but I don't like the notion of simply, automatically taking away that contract every 4 years. Reviewing, absolutely, but not just removing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoo. Councillor Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a review would warrant a healthy look, a updating, taking things out, putting things in. We would be dealing with something that is currently existing. If we went with expired, it's done. Then there's no more contract. We're starting from scratch. Would that be right?
If I could, sir, certainly the intent of administration at that time, as the director indicated, is we would commence the negotiations of the contract or contract extension well in advance of the expiration date. But I would suggest it's comparable to an expiration date in the sense that if there's issues that arise, they would be negotiated in a renewal or an extension of the contract.
So I, Mr. Chair, would not support this motion. I would definitely support a review, but not the motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burke.
I mean, I've been involved in probably 100 management agreements, and they all have a termination on the end. I mean, this is not an out of the ordinary situation, and there is nothing like an end date to get everybody focused on what needs to happen. I mean, management contracts, property management contract, all kinds of management contracts have a termination date. And it's not like, oh my God, there's a termination date, this is going to end. It's a formal review of your relationship at that point. Like, I don't I don't, we're talking like, oh my God, in 4 years, we don't have a contract to manage the library. I mean, all that this motion says is that there's a formal end date to this thing when we need to agree to how we're gonna manage the thing go forward. I don't think it's that complicated. I really couldn't imagine the situation where the Hinton Library Society that's been managing this place for the last 30 years, not gonna be there to do it in 4 years. Like, all this is saying, so let's put an end date on this thing so that we actually sit down and have a look at that. This contract's pretty straightforward. I mean, I don't imagine this is gonna be a hugely technical review. So, I mean, for me, I like the fact that we've gotten lots of things that we hadn't really gotten around to when we probably should have gotten it. This means we'll get around to it, and I like the end date on the contract, frankly. I would support this one. For what it's worth.
Okay, I have myself and then Councillor Goon, Reese, and Councillor Stashik. I guess with all respect, the fact the way it is, and I too believe that it would continue, and I agree with the review of it. You know, let's look at it. I mean, we technically kind of review it every budget. You know, we go through, we ask questions and everything. My only concern is if a council of the day after 4 years said, no, we're out of the library business, then that means the way it's worded is it's severed, done, and now we got the library board at the time got to figure out now how they're gonna do business, and it's gonna cost actually way more than it is. So I guess I'm okay with review. I think that it's important, absolutely, reviewing that, but I don't feel right now comfortable with it being a termination potentially after 4 years. And severing that, I guess. And I'm speaking from two hats. I mean, I know that I'm also on the board as well, and the board will do what the will of council is. But I think just for relationship wise, I think there would be more than happy for a review, but I just can't be sold on that termination at this point. So thank you, Councillor Lagoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have a couple of concerns regarding some of the things that were said and why I still maintain that a review is perfectly acceptable. Number one is that there's a difference between, private industry where you can potentially go out to multiple vendors and contract. You have choice between who's going to do a job. I don't like you managing my property, but I think I can get better bang for my buck with you because I can get a better deal. We only have one library board in town, right? I mean, that's just how it is. We've had the same library board doing that job, like we were told since the 70s. So in this case, where's the logic in making the assumption that we're just going to terminate their contract? And along with that, I think there's a huge inefficiency there. That means every 4 years, we're going to spend a lot of money on lawyers and administrative time to redig into that brand new contract because we're terminating, we're scrapping it and starting from scratch. So we have to build a new one from scratch. That doesn't sound efficient to me. If you've got something and it's not broke, don't fix it. If it is broke, then fix it, which makes, again, more sense. If there's a problem, use a review. Don't make the default setting just getting rid of the contract.
Thank you, Councillor Lagoon. Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Councillor LaBerge, did I hear you right? If we allow it to expire, it's just a formal review we would be doing. Is that what you said?
Well, I mean, in most instances, that management contract would just be replaced with a similar or exactly the same contract as before with different dates on it. All that it does is move that contract forward. So, I mean, and I agree with the comment that you do have the ability to search around. It's just, you have the ability to look at everything at that point. And if the council of the day does decide, they're going to decide anyhow. So that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm still in favor of a review, not the solution.
All right, Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, my concern would be in the event that future council of the day decides that they don't want to renew that contract, the library board's indicated that there's a requirement for a 2-year transition period. So unless there was a plan set out on how that 2-year transition period could be accommodated, I wouldn't be comfortable supporting this motion. And further to that, if a motion was put forward to send it back to develop a transition strategy, I wouldn't be in support of that either. I don't feel that that's a good use of time and effort and legal fees and everything associated. I would be okay though if somebody wanted to put forward a motion that there's a mandatory review every 4 years, that it comes back to council for review of the contract. So if council wants to take action or change it, they can at that opportunity, and they can work with the 2-year notice period that the library board's requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. All right, council, any other comments on this, the motion? All right, so if we could see the motion, please. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to call the question then, that council contract or counts that the contract have a, and I guess the library board, what is the contract called, just so I'm clear?
Yeah, so the town of Hinton Library Board contract.
Okay.
Agreement at the
Okay,
end.
so the contract have a 4-year term added to the town of Hinton Library Board contract for services agreement. Council? Yeah.
Just, sorry, sir, if I could just suggest that it read that a 4-year term, it's just redundant adding. So
Oh, that a.
that a 4-year term be added.
Councillor Taylor, are you okay with that? That a 4-year term be added? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll go back to it just to read it out as is now. Call the question that a 4-year term be added to the town of Hinton Library Board contract for services agreement. Council, all those in favor? All those opposed? And that is defeated 4-2. Okay. Council, any other matters on this contract? Questions, comments? Councillor Taylor.
Can you, somebody explain to me why we have a 2-year out clause? The old contract had a 6-month, the agreement, the old agreement that preceded this had a 6-month out termination clause on it. And this one's got a 2-year clause. So what has changed between the 6-year and the 2-year? What are the circumstances that have changed to go from a 2-year to 6-month to a 2-year? Please.
Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to committee. I wasn't involved in negotiating the 2016 one, but I, for sure in 2021, the board did a lot more homework on figuring out what it would look like if there was a complete separation between the town and the library. And so things like, I mean, sure, you can perhaps hire an accountant, you can do things like that. They have to create and implement an entirely new OH&S program. Work with the ministry to get established that way. The other thing is they would have to establish a new and separate collective agreement with the union, because the employees there now are town employees and they are unionized employees. We've had conversations with the union in that the municipality can't sever their service and contract it to someone else to do in a way of getting around having union membership. And so the union has already told us that they will be expecting that they will have to establish a new and separate collective agreement with the library board, for example. So it's things like that that they have to start from they have to create all for themselves and do for themselves. And then I suppose the other part of it is that relationship with the town. Of course, they would still continue to come to council and ask for their municipal appropriation each year. And that would significantly increase because of the costs they would have incur to have, for example, someone external do their payroll and all their accounts payable and things like that. So the time it would take to keep the operating the library and develop a new separate autonomous business. We anticipated would take up to 2 years.
Councillor Taylor,
Okay, thank you.
does that answer your question? Okay. All right, council, any other questions on the contract? Councillor Taylor?
I can't find it. It's a question related to the legal services. What page was that on, please?
It is on page 35 of 45. It's under legislative and legal services.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's kind of a 2-point question. Part 3 here, in the event the board requires legal services to pursue any legal action, the board is encouraged to engage independent advice. Like, what happens if we're the one that's in a legal dispute with them? Are they gonna use our legal services? We're gonna pay for it?
If I could, sir, through you to Council Taylor, I think it's the opposite of that. Is the reason we would encourage their own independent legal, particularly if it was something involving the town of Hinton, is to avoid that conflict. If they were to do so, and I'm going to ask the director on this, I believe it would be at their cost to cover any of those legal fees.
That's the case, Councillor Taylor.
Why is the word encourage not will then?
Because we can't tell the board what to do. They may decide not to. Sorry, they may not decide to have any legal representation or do something else. This is about if they're in a situation where.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so it's they can decide whether they want to engage legal services or not.
Yeah, but in no cases, if we're in legal trouble with them, are we going to be using the same legal team and we're going to be paying? That's not going to happen.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Magoon.
Regarding the legal, I just had a question on page, I think it's also on 35. Just give me a sec. I have to check the page here. Yeah, 35, number 4, regarding requests for information. So number 4 states that either party reserves the right to decline any information request from another party. Is that an outside party other than the town and the library board? Or is it that the library board, as an example, could decline a request outside of FOIP from the town of Hinton proper?
Sorry, you actually lost me on that.
No problem. Sorry, let me ask it a different way. So let's say tomorrow the town of Hinton wanted information from the library board, and they requested that information from the library board. Does number 4 say that the library board doesn't have to give the town of Hinton information that is outside of the scope of FOIP?
If I could, sir, I think it actually reads that they have the right not to provide that information.
Okay.
In which case the town would then have to go through the FOIP process. And it does then state that they would utilize their own external contractor to determine that FOIP process.
Okay. Mr. Chair, could I?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I guess, and I don't know if it's a legal thing, like I don't know if we have a leg to stand on or if it's appropriate to say or not. But from a taxpayer's perspective, it concerns me a little bit that we have an organization that is, it's funded through taxation. But then, one of the legal clauses in here says that if they don't want to give the town information, that's beyond the scope of FOIP, they have that right. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong-headed about that, but I'm just wondering how the rest of council feels. Or if that's even illegal to think about things that way.
Councillor Labarre.
Well, and we've got a situation where we have a contract in perpetuity and we'd have to pay him for 2 years at the same time.
Sorry, what?
Well, there would be no ability to go, well, we're gonna pull your funding, or you're not giving us the information. They go, cool, but you gotta do this for 2 years. I mean, we're locked into a situation at that point. That would be, now I can't imagine that that's gonna be the case, but it's the eventuality of that clause.
Well,
Sorry.
if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
Okay, and the reason I say that, and I hate to use a case study, but in this case, all of the players have changed on the board and staff wise over at the library board. This was really one of the first major issues I think I dealt with as a counselor, as a library board representative. But I had a real concern one particular year with how some money was being spent in giving a gift to a particular staff member. And if the town council or if, administration had officially requested, say, an invoice to say, we'd like to see how you spent this money. And they said, well, it's outside the scope of FOIP. We're not going to provide you with that. That worries me, like that bothers me actually. And I realize that's all hypothetical, but, trying to read through the legalese, I could see that potentially being a problem. I hope that would never be an issue, but.
I see what I'm.
Thank you, sir. If I could, to council or to member Magoon, to all of the committee. I don't believe this states or could state that they don't provide that information to the town of Hinton on inquiry. It's simply stating that, and you would hope that they'd have a positive relationship. We would have a positive relationship with our board. And if we asked for this information, they would just, as a matter of course, provide that information and it would come to us. In the event that the relationship was not exactly perhaps where we wanted it to be, we would then simply be compelled through FOIP to make that same freedom of information inquiry, and they would be obligated to provide it. It's not suggesting that they would never have to be provided. They have to provide it. It's a public body. And so it may come back partially redacted through that external contractor, but they would still have to respond to the inquiry.
Okay, thanks.
And if I may, to comment, I guess, and not that I don't dispute that happened, but currently, as I see it, everything financially goes across our desk, it's itemized, and we know what they pay for, which goes into the Bellamy system within the town as well. So I mean, I do, like if it's financially, it's pretty much, quite transparent in public documents. So I mean, I'm sure there's probably something out there that would be, but I think the other thing is that this has gone through the legal eyes and they propose to stay in there. So that's all. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't foresee it problem, but you never know, right? I appreciate it. Okay, council, any other questions on this matter or any other? Yes, Councillor Taylor.
Last one, I promise.
Okay.
Page 16, clause 12. The last sentence says, as the board must ensure that the library objectives are met, the board is entitled to direct, that's the word I'm wondering about, the town from time to time as to the personnel that the town as contractor will provide to the board. What exactly does that mean, direct? Does that mean you can tell us who we have as a administrative rep? You can tell who the counselor is? What does that mean?
Sorry.
Which
clause?
Page
16, clause 12. If you go to the last sentence at the bottom, clause 12. The clause 12 starts, the board has requested and the town has agreed. But if you go to the last sentence, it says, as the board must ensure that the library objectives are met, the board is entitled to direct the town from time to time as to the personnel that the town as contractor will provide to the board. So that says to me that you can say, we don't like Stuart Taylor on as your council representative, or Ryan McGowan, and we would like so-and-so. That says to me that we don't like so-and-so as your administrative person. We direct you to give us so-and-so as your administrative person. I'm just asking what that means.
If I could, sir, I'm
Mhm.
actually, I think I understand the question. And unfortunately, I'm just taking a look on page 8 of 22. It's the definition section and we don't define personnel. So perhaps it's intended, or perhaps we should secure a definition of personnel and add it. Because I believe, and certainly I would allow the director to speak to this, I believe the intent in personnel is the library is an independent, if you will, agency. We provide human resource and other supports to it, but I believe personnel is intended to be those individuals that are employed by the library. The library board should have input on that, whether it's the library manager or somebody else. And I believe that's the intent of personnel in this case, but
Correct. Yeah, if I could add to that as well, the section is entitled Library Employees, section 10, 11, and the middle of section 12 refer to personnel to or library positions. So it's not that the library gets to impact any other town positions. And this is one of the tricky parts, is that because the town employs and pays those employees, they are by CRA and P4s and all that, they are employees of the board. And that's why when they get contracted to the library by legislation has to, all employees of the library have to be employees of the library. And herein lies one of the biggest problems, is how do we meet all of that legislation when there are employees, but they're also their employees? And so this, speaks to everything from, well, who does performance management? And if something's not working out, we no longer want to contract this person from you. So now they come back to the town and now we don't have a position for them. Now we lay them off. So there's the whole process that's required, but this is just about personnel in the library.
thank you, sir. Actually, I missed that. So when I do come back to the definitions section on page 21 of 45, it does define library employees. It means the town employees selected by the board in consultation with the town pursuant to the positions required by the board, which are contracted to the board by the town pursuant to this agreement. That does not include council council appointees or anything to that effect.
Councilor Taylor.
Okay, if you're confident, thanks.
Okay. All right, council, any more questions on the comment or on the contract? Anybody, Councilor McGowan?
Just, I'm willing to make a direction, but only if council's had a chance to ask their questions.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a direction that committee direct administration to bring the town of Hinton Library Board contract for services agreement as presented to the July 19th, 2022 regular council meeting for decision.
All right, thank you, Councilor McGowan. We have a direction on the floor. Any questions or comments on the direction from council? All right, then I'll call that to question the committee direct administration to bring the town of Hinton Library Board contract for services agreement as presented to the July 19th, 2022 regular council meeting for decision. Council, all those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Any other discussion on this matter before we move on? Okay, then we'll move on to 5.2, which is our 2011 International Solid Waste Truck. ICO Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the members of the committee. I will add, we're on page 36 of your agenda package. And at this point, I'm going to ask Mr. Martineau to take us through. This is the 2011 International Solid Waste Truck. And John, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through the committee.
So in 2020, Public Works Department, the town purchased through a competitive process, a 2020 Peterbilt front load commercial truck. Which was intended to service our commercial bins. And at that time, it was identified that it would be an opportunity to add, and I believe administration identified the opportunity to add an attachment to assist with our residential pickup in the event that our primary residential truck fails. So when it was put into use with that attachment, operators noticed some concerns, not limited to handling, steering issues, driver fatigue, and safe operation within laneways and overhead power lines. There were some variances to the RFP noted at the time of the tender being received, and the variances were accepted by the town of Hinton at that time. And some of those variances led to some of the challenges that were faced by the operators of the truck. The addition of the grotto can actually compromise the safe and legal operation of the vehicle. So since the unit was the backup for residential waste collection, we reached out to administration, reached out to supplier for alternate options to serve as a backup vehicle. Now, we determined that the daily cost for private waste collection was going to be approximately $3,000 per day. So we sought out a more cost-effective option, and the alternative was that we found a 2011 International Solid Waste truck that was similar to our primary truck, just a little bit older. And we entered a rental agreement with that truck. So I kind of crunched some of the numbers with some other members of administration and spoke with the company that we're renting from to determine that we could actually exchange the attachment that was identified as a hazard directly for the remaining purchase price of this truck. So kind of negotiated that with them. And I guess I would like to recommend that administration would like to recommend that committee direct us to bring the purchase of the rental unit 2011 International Solid Waste truck using funds from the sale of the grotto can attachment to the July 5th, 2022 regular council meeting for decision.
Okay, thank you, John. Council LeVar.
Okay, so it makes a little more sense to me then. So this grotto can was a separate, it's just an attachment then to that front load truck.
That's correct.
Okay, so now we're gonna get this other truck that could do residential pickup, but its primary job of the original unit was to pick up commercial. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so this new truck will be able to do the commercial pickup as well?
Strictly for commercial, no residential pickup, sorry, not for commercial. You're talking about the rental truck that was identified for purchase.
Oh, so yeah, it's only the grotto can that's gonna go. So
That's
that other, the commercial truck will be there.
It'll still be our
We'll just have a
primary
second
commercial
one on standby. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the primary commercial truck was fitted with an attachment that
Right,
ended up
okay.
not working out. It's still gonna be our primary commercial truck. However, we're gonna add this other truck or hope to add this other truck as a backup to our commercial.
Thank you.
Residential, I apologize.
I see O'Hanlon.
If I could, sir, and John can speak to this as well, but I think it's worth just clarifying the requested direction. If we go to page 37 of 45, and you'll see, I'm going to just call it the first major paragraph at the top of the page, just above implications of decision. And John, I'm going to go through this and just correct me if I'm wrong. There's a residual value of that current backup truck, the 2011 that we're talking about here today, of $31,000. The vendor for this truck is willing to take as credit, essentially a $31,000 credit for this attachment on our current commercial units.
Right.
So we're looking for direction on this. So when this first came to my attention, we were talking about utilizing reserves and other funds and so forth. And I think administration's done a pretty good job of bringing something back where we got a bit of a turd, sorry, but technical term, but we got something that we acquired that we don't need, that has value to the vendor, that will essentially allow us to exchange without touching our reserves, the acquisition of this rental truck. I just wanted to, because for me, it wasn't clear in the requested direction.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. Councilor Magoon?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And really, I love the idea. The only question that I had along with the report was, do we anticipate that there's enough of a sustainable lifetime from an asset management perspective on this 2011 truck moving forward, as opposed to, say, selling that Corrado can attachment and investing in a new vehicle? Like, where's the best bang for our buck, I suppose?
Councilor Magoon, administration?
Thanks, Tommy. So I think basically the cost of a new truck for residential pickup would be around $275,000. I consider this truck is, like we explained before, $31,000 net zero exchanges.
I think Mr. Russo?
So I should make a comment. So I just want to build on a couple of things that brought us here today. So council or committee may say, why did it take you so long to get here? We onboarded this truck in January 2021. And the reason for that is that we were looking at where the fault was lying, so to speak. We put out a tender. We got.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very much. Can you backtrack a sentence or two and just speak up?
Oh,
Can you come around to one of the mics, Winston?
Just go back a sentence or two. Thank you.
Right. So I'll just start again, Councillor Taylor. So where I was starting out is that why did this take us so long to bring to council? Because the truck was onboarded January 2021. And then from that point, about 3 months into it, the drivers and operators were saying, it's really fatiguing us. It's really heavy to steer. And then we brought the truck in for a couple of days, did a couple of tests, got some scales ordered, looked at it, did some loading of it, put the load to the back, look at what the front axles are carrying, and we realized that there is a heaviness on it. Then we went into the tender and we looked at it because, John and I wasn't here at the time, so we didn't have the history. So when we looked at the tender, we saw that there were some, things that were omitted quite by agreement. But when we really looked deeper into it, that we purchased a truck out of the US because the waiting time would have been X plus month. So the administration of the day made the best decision with the information they had, but forgot that there is design loading that needs to happen. So when we weighed out what the serviceability load is over when the curator can goes onto it, that we were over the service limits. So as a result, we could not, because this truck travels on provincial roads, so we could not get it legally to operate at within that weight. So what John then did and came to me and he said, okay, by this time, John is now on board, just October 2020, he started with us. And he said, what do I do? He says, because we do need a backup now because we can't go into the laneways and say, and firstly, it's not legal to operate. So I said, park the kit and operate it commercially and get that backup. So I said, but to rent for $3,000 a day is prohibitive. Can you go out to suppliers and see what they have? And then they had, so this truck that we're talking about to potentially onboard, it's got a 2014 age limit on it, but the chassis and some of the units have been rebuilt that it's much newer than 2014. So I said, okay, let's go into a rental sort of approach and see if we can, in the event, should we have to purchase it, let's not just pay rental fees. Let's see if we can get 80% back of that. So when you run the numbers here this evening, you'll see that John has done just that to get us the rental fee. 80% of that is actually paid for the truck. Then I said, well, what about, we don't have money to spend midway through here for capital, but this is a necessity to keep up our level of service to the community and improve that. And the truck is also safe and it's easier to use. Let's take it to council, but we're sitting with the obsolete can. What is the best we can get? And I think John was offered $26,000 for it initially. And us being who we are, I said, that's not acceptable. Challenge them for the balance of it. And they came back with that 31,000. So this is how we arrived with, became a net effect. We also vetted this with our finance people, because if you really look at it, these are operational funds that we put towards the rental. How would they reconcile the Connecticut or the existing truck with depreciation, and how do we look? And they were on board based on this, and hence council having this in front of you for consideration for us to bring it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. ICO Hanlon.
Thank you, sir. If I could, just to member Magoon's comment, I don't disagree that if this were to be one of our principal units for residential collection, that it may not be ideal, but this is a backup unit. And so it is something that we need to have in our fleet. We no longer need to rely on a rental, and we've got it, and it's reliable and available, and I think would last for, and I don't know, I think John would like to speak to that as well.
Just a little extra on that was that, you know, between the operators and mechanics, it was identified as a reasonable and reliable option for the price.
Councilor Labarge, I think, did I see your hand go up?
No, I'm good for now. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Councilor Taylor.
So if I understand what you said, we bought a truck and a Curado can that either wasn't safe or appropriate to use, essentially because we didn't have the expertise within the department to make a good purchase decision. That's kind of what I heard. So do we now have that expertise available so that in the future we can avoid these kind of problems?
Mr. Russo.
Through to the chair, to Councillor Taylor. We always had the expertise. I believe what has happened, I actually talked to the mechanic this morning that was who worked on the truck and made all the assessments I went through. Unfortunately, he was not involved in the decision making when the tender alterations were undertaken. So as a result, had he been involved, he would have been able to flag the knock-on effect of a potential change or a change in the tender, which given them a reduction or made it more affordable to purchase. So we do have the expertise, Councillor Taylor. It's just that he wasn't kept abreast of it all through the process of the changes.
And he'll be involved in future decisions?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Magoon.
I'd like to move that committee direct administration to bring the purchase of the rental unit, the 2011 International Solid Waste Truck, using funds from the sale of the Corrado can attachment to the July 5th, 2022 regular council meeting for decision.
Great, thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have a direction put out there. Any comments on it? Then we'll call that the question, that committee direct administration to bring the purchase of the rental unit, the 2011 International Solid Waste Truck, using funds from the sale of Corrado can attachment to the July 5th, 2022 regular council meeting for decision. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. All right, thank you, council. Thank you, John. Thanks, appreciate it. We're going to move on to reporting now and to council reports. So we'll start with Councillor Race.
Okay, thank you, sir. The only thing I have to report is that I can find it here. The meeting that we had with administration in regards to our strategic plan, I found that meeting at Fire Hall was excellent. It was a truly honest conversation with administration. I really enjoyed it. And that's it, sir.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we did have a pretty busy week last week, in addition to attending the strategic plan presentation meeting last Wednesday evening. I had a couple different community futures meetings. I don't know if council recalls back on June 7th, there was at the June 7th regular meeting, there was a request to accept the proposed 2022 economic development budget expenditures as information. So one of the things in there was funding for a partnership with Community Futures for business retention and expansion exercise and survey. So I was able to sit in on June 22nd on Wednesday in the kickoff meeting for that project. So the business retention and expansion triage program aims to identify the supports and issues needed from a specific municipality to help local businesses succeed and plan for future development. A triage BR&E is used at times of change, such as the change we're currently experiencing in the economy as we struggle as communities to recover from the COVID-19 global pandemic. Using a consultant, Community Futures will work to gather robust local data that can help municipalities and economic development organizations understand the opportunities for growth or challenges that may hinder growth or lead to decline. So next steps in the programs, Community Futures had the kickoff meeting with the consultants to discuss the foundation of the project, review the methodology, timeline, and key approaches for conducting the project. Hinton will have 80 to 100 businesses randomly contacted by telephone to complete the information, but the main next step is sending information to the consultant to build a list of businesses and also to develop questions that will be asked of the business. So what we can look for after that is the completion of the report, which will then be available to the town so we can use it for economic development indication and planning to see if any of our local businesses need additional support. So great program, great return on the investment. So yeah. Other than that, also with Community Futures, we had our June meeting, and it was actually Yellowhead County hosted at the new community hall in Brule. So pretty nice, brand new facility. Anyway, what came out of the June board meeting was that Community Futures will be conducting their fall business walk, and that will be on October the 26th, 2022. That's just an opportunity for Community Futures and some of their invited guests to visit in person with a bunch of Hinton businesses to see how they're doing, what's up, and try to get a pulse on what's happening. Also on Thursday of last week, Community Futures had their annual general meeting, also at the same facility. Some of the stuff that came out of the annual general meeting, it's mostly just housekeeping stuff to get everything lined up for the upcoming year. But the main thing that came out of that would be of interest to council would be the election of the executive committee, which was Tyler Olson from the MD of Greenview as chair, Don Mitchell from Yellowhead County as vice chair, myself as secretary treasurer, and Councillor LaBerge was elected as the new investment review committee chair. So congratulations to Councillor LaBerge for that new position.
Whoop, whoop.
And that's all I have to report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stachek. Councillor LaBerge.
So like everyone else here, I did attend the strategy presentation to administration and was really happy after we began to roll. And thank you, Mr. Russo, for kicking off the discussion. It was a little stiff at the start, but once it started to roll, I think it was very well done. I too did attend the Community Futures meeting, and I guess the one update on the business and retention study that they're going to do. The last time that baseline was done was just before establishing the last economic development strategy. So that's got to be 5 years ago. So it just really sets a nice baseline to the community for decision making as it relates to those broader economic issues facing Hinton and region. And on the IRC, obviously we never talk about the loans that do get placed, but I'm really interested to see some of the innovation coming out of this area. The last one was the individuals from Edson, but what an interesting business concept, and just seeing more and more of that coming out of this region.
Councillor Taylor, anything to report?
Other than the strategic planning session, I too thought that it was a worthwhile exercise where everybody there, administration and council, indicated a willingness to work professionally together. So I thought that was great in a positive fashion. Other than that, nothing to report. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Magoon.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just really an update on the Land Acknowledgement Working Committee. First of all, I just want to express my appreciation to Ms. Mark. You know how hard it is sometimes arranging schedules, especially when people are taking vacation. So she's been very patient with us. So that's appreciated. In terms of dates prior to myself going on vacation, we're going to be meeting on July the 6th, tentatively, to have sort of our initial discussions. Then while I'm away on vacation, Councillor Race is going to be engaging with some of our stakeholders to sort of, take our initial thoughts out to them, but also more importantly, to hear the feedback from those particular groups. And then we will meet again in August to work through some of that material. So that's sort of the next steps you can expect to see about and hear in the next month or two. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Goon. And myself, I share what other councillors mentioned on our council and administration strategic plan meeting. It was great. I really appreciated being able to sit down with everybody, and I'm looking forward to the tactical work that was done the next following day and seeing what that result is. I just want to throw a thanks out to the staff at the library and the board members that were able to attend on Saturday, the 25th. They had a come out and get a burger and some, displays out there and some fun happening in the parking lot there. I saw some pictures of it. It looked like it was a great time and it was a nice sunny day out. So I had some people come out to that. Excuse me. We had our first round of CEO interviews last night. So that was very positive. And then afterwards, I attended the Valley Business meeting, and Mr. Rousseau also was in attendance there, and wasn't a great turnout, but we were able to just talk a little bit about their concern right now is the safety in that area of traffic flow, the direction, people going the wrong way, people speeding. So walked away from there. Mr. Russo was taking a look at that and appreciate that. What kind of options might be available to us down there to direct traffic better. Discussions even going back to, apparently there used to be angle parking in that area. I wasn't here when that was there, but even comments of could we go back to that potentially. So all kind of things are going to be looked at. So thank you, Mr. Russo, for attending as well and having that conversation with the group. Also, just a shout out to the grads of Perry College, have their graduation tomorrow at 1 p.m. So that's happening. And also to remind everybody that we have a lot of festivities happening for Canada Day on July 1st with parade and pancake breakfast. The showmobile is going to be there with entertainment. There are going to be some presentations made as well. So yeah, hopefully everybody can come on out, check it out. And looking forward to hopefully a sunny day. I'm not sure what our weather is
Guaranteed sunny.
Yeah, so that's all I have to report. So. All right, and then on to Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you, sir. Not much to add that wasn't covered already. Did appreciate again the opportunity to have council and senior administration together last Wednesday. That did lead into the Thursday facilitated session on the tactical planning workshop. I will share that we're 75% there. So the facilitators got us as far as we could, given the time we had. It has been upon us to kind of finish that document. It does remain my intention to bring that to council as an information item in one of the community to hold meetings in July. And I'm thinking the second meeting in July. By the time we'll have to sit and probably spend another couple of hours as a leadership group on that. I like to celebrate successes even when they're done by others. So the Rolling in the Rockies this past weekend was, I wish I could have gone, and it's been a long time since anyways, it's been a long time. But I understand it was a huge success. My staff tell me and residents have shared with me that they thought a wonderful job was done on that. So that is terrific, and glad to be a small part of that here at the town of Hinton. And I guess from a status report, just happy to share that we're starting and coming out of COVID, as we often say, but starting the planning for August 6th for the mayor's charity golf tournament. Certainly thrilled to be supporting two significant local charities. So we'll have the Women's Shelter and Bridges will be the beneficiaries of this year's event. And so very excited and appreciate Kyle's efforts over at the golf course and helping us get that started. So that would be my report at this time. I just see a question up on the.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Just a comment, I do appreciate the way administration got involved with helping out with rolling for the Rockies. So thank you very much for doing that. I'm sure the people that organized it appreciated it too. Thank you.
Yeah, my understanding was 100 people inside that was in the disco area. I was talking to one of the organizers last night, and so there's looking at future events as well. So we'll see like a good turn. So yeah, awesome. Okay, and status report, anything to report on that? Or we've got some hires that have happened, but
I think council seems kind of, and as shared with Councillor Race just a little earlier. As of now, today, council is aware of everything that I was aware of and was coming and was headed your way. So looking and very excited to seeing stabilization now of the team here. We are going out to market a number of positions. I do appreciate council's comments on one of those positions and they're being incorporated into that process. But for the most part, other than reviewing job descriptions before posting, and we are going out to market on the Director of Corporate Services here right away and hoping to align those in and around the recruitment.
You just hired one.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, community service.
Sorry.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
sir. Community services.
Thank you.
Don't do that, for God's
Sorry,
sake.
she's not even here yet. And so quite interested in ensuring the appropriate recruitment and onboarding of a major director position around council's recruitment of a permanent CAO. So giving some thought on how to accommodate that and make sure that works in the most positive way possible. So just working with HR on that one as well.
Okay, thank you. Council, is there any questions for the council or the action pending list for CEO? Oh, Councillor Taylor. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question for the CAO.
Okay.
I saw that we hired another bylaw officer. Do we have now two? Or do we have one? Where do we stand with that?
Sir, through you to Member Taylor, that this is filling a second position which has been vacant for some time, and so it's in budget. It was included in this year's budget, and so that individual will be starting here shortly. They have to. There's some paperwork, and their Solicitor General process takes about 5 to 6 weeks.
So we'll have two now?
Yes, we will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for our CEO? Yes, Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not that council's really special, but is there any way that we could get maybe a half hour, 1 hour notice that someone is leaving the organization prior to it getting on the street? Or is there some reason why we are not told prior?
Sir, through you to Member Race, there's no particular reason. It's just we often come to an agreement with the individual when, particularly in circumstances where they're tendering their resignation, we negotiate everything, including the communication of that to the organization and the timing of it and so forth. So I'll give some thought to, I'll discuss with HR if there's some way, but there's no direct intention to keep council out of this beyond what needs to be done appropriately through human resources. But I'll see if there's something we can do to give you, you're looking for a bit of a heads up.
Well, I am. It's you look foolish when you say, you're kidding me. I don't think they're leaving. And yeah, they are. So I would appreciate it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, council, anything on the action pending list that you'd like to ask? Yes, Councillor LaBarge.
So And unfortunately, most of these fall under Mr. Russo, but I counted 19 items we were supposed to have information for by today. June 28th being the day. And appreciating that that's not gonna happen. That revised date, is that something we can sort of manage a little more actively? I mean, I'd hate to get 19 of these things. But if we're gonna start to use this thing as some sort of a prioritization list. To tag the 28th of June in February seems fine because it's so far off, but on the 28th of June, there is day of reckoning. So how often do we sit and have a look at this and go, you know, realistically, when can we deliver that?
Sir, if I could, through you to Member Labarge, we do regularly review this at the leadership team, and so we are taking a look at the delivery of these. And you know, certainly would not be our intent to bring 8 items to the same meeting. But you know, Mr. Rizzo is very busy in his area right now, and a number of these are coming together. Again, a number of these items are often involved in the same, you know, the rapid housing initiative or other initiatives. Jen, you had a comment?
Yeah, I do want to make a comment because when this list was updated last week, a lot of those, the ones Councilor Labarge is speaking of, is they should have been marked complete because they were motions made by council. And when I was on holidays last week, I kindly pushed them through the system, however, just did not mark them complete. Most of those ones where there's no comments in the comment section should be complete.
Okay.
So that'll be why they seem to be outstanding, but they're not. So that's mine.
Dr. Stashik?
So you barely have anything to do that.
Oh.
Yeah,
Clean up your own list.
if I may, I think maybe there's some things in there that have an incorrect due date. There's stuff there that was just discussed at council a week ago, and it's got a June 28th due date. And so I'm thinking that's not right either. I wasn't going to comment on it. I assumed it would get caught and corrected, but yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Stashik. Councilor Reese, did you have a?
Yes, sir, thank you. MD 2556. I'm really looking forward to that sweeper coming back to us. Do you have an update on when we will see the sweeper?
Thank you, Councilor Reese, to Mr. Bissot and to John. I know that it's a potentially quite a complicated item with many options possibly available to us to at least consider. Do we have an idea of what date we'd like to bring this back to council?
So July 24th.
26, right?
Committee of the whole.
Good, sirs. Thank you. Council, any other questions on the action pending list then? Or on that matter, also on the completed list? All right then. So that brings us to no more items. So we're looking for a motion to adjourn then, council. Councilor Labarge.
I move that we adjourn, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. And all those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.